The waiter looked at me like I was waiting for someone who'd never come. Maybe he was right. The candles were half melted, the bread basket untouched, and the jazz playing overhead felt like mockery. Our 10th anniversary. She picked the restaurant, said she might be a few minutes late. That was 2 hours ago. The ice in my glass had long since melted when I heard the shuffle of small sneakers on tile. Dad, my son, Ethan, stood there in his school jacket, his hair messy from the wind. His babysitter should have had him home. I blinked, confused. "Hey, buddy, what are you doing here?" He looked at the empty chair across from me. Then he said it, quiet, matter-of-fact, like kids say the truth before they learn how to hide it. "Mom's busy with Jake again." The world didn't tilt. It just stopped. Jake. The name slid through the air like a knife I'd been pretending not to feel. My jaw clenched, but I said nothing. Ethan climbed into the seat across from me, his little hands reaching for the menu. "I'm hungry," he said. That I nodded, waved for the waiter. My voice didn't crack, didn't shake. "1 plate, please," I said. The waiter hesitated, glancing between us, but I didn't explain. Ethan started coloring the corner of the napkin with the red crayon he kept in his jacket. He hummed softly, oblivious. I watched him, not the door, not my phone, just him. When the food came, he looked up and said, "Is Mom coming later?" I looked at the flickering candle. "No, buddy," I said quietly. "She's got other plans." He chewed slowly, eyes down. Then he said something I'll never forget. "I told her I don't like Jake." He laughs too loud. For a moment, I almost laughed too, because that was exactly it. Too loud, too sure, too close. I didn't check her messages that night. Didn't call, didn't rage. I paid the bill, thanked the waiter, and held Ethan's hand as we stepped out into the cold. The air smelled like rain, like something ending. Outside, my car was parked under a street lamp. A woman at a nearby table was taking a selfie with her husband, both laughing, wine glasses raised. Ethan watched them, then looked up at me. "You forgot flowers," he said. "Yeah," I murmured, squeezing his hand. "I think we'll skip flowers this year." He nodded, sleepy, trusting. I opened the door for him, and when I looked back at the restaurant, the table was still lit, still waiting for someone who'd already chosen elsewhere. Before I start the rest of this story, if you're hearing my voice right now, hit subscribe. Sometimes the quietest endings tell the loudest truths. I drove home in silence, Ethan asleep in the back seat. My phone buzzed once, then again. I didn't look. The night wasn't about her anymore. It was about the boy behind me, and the way he said her name like it didn't belong in our home anymore. When we got home, the porch light was off. She always left it on. Always. Until tonight, I unlocked the door, turned on the lamp, and there it was on the counter. Her half-empty wine glass from last night and a note that just said, "Don't wait up." I didn't. The morning after felt too quiet, the kind of silence that buzzes inside your ears. The kitchen smelled faintly of her perfume, that floral scent she sprayed before every meeting. The note was still there, folded neatly beside her glass, as if she thought I'd smile and understand. I didn't touch it. I just poured coffee and sat by the window, watching the sun hit the empty driveway. Ethan padded into the room, rubbing his eyes. "Mom home?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. He looked at the note but didn't ask more. Kids sense things before they know how to name them. I packed his lunch, drove him to school, and smiled when the teacher waved. No one could tell the difference between a man keeping it together and a man already gone inside. On the way back, I passed her office. Her car wasn't there. I didn't stop. There was a version of me once that would have checked, counted hours, tracked locations. That version died somewhere between her lipstick stains and the lies she called work dinners. Instead, I drove home and sat at the table again. The same table where Ethan had said Jake's name like it was no big deal. I let the silence fill the room until it became almost peaceful. Her text came around 10:03. "Sorry about last night. Things ran late. Let's do dinner tonight instead." I stared at it for a while, then locked the screen. 10 minutes later, another one came. "You're mad. I get it. But don't take it out on Ethan. Okay?" The irony made me almost laugh. She'd already taken everything out on him without even knowing it. I typed and deleted a dozen replies before leaving it on read. I wasn't angry. I was just done playing. Around noon, she called. I let it ring. Then a message, lunch. Then another, please, can we talk? I went out instead to a diner near the river. The same one where she and I used to go before life got complicated with careers and secrets. The waitress remembered me. Table for two? She asked with a smile. Just one, I said. She nodded softly like she understood. Maybe she did. The phone buzzed again. This time I opened it. A photo, her smiling at a conference table. Jake in the background pretending not to look at her. Caption, Team Synergy Day. My stomach turned. They looked comfortable. Familiar. I zoomed in, saw her hand on his chair, his smirk. It wasn't new, just finally visible. When I got home that afternoon, her car was in the driveway. She was in the kitchen, acting like everything was normal. You didn't answer, she said, half smiling. I figured I'd surprise you. I took off my jacket, hung it by the door, and didn't reply. Ethan at school? She asked, opening the fridge. Yeah, I said. He told me about Jake. Her hand froze on the milk carton. She blinked once, twice. What? He said you were busy with him again, I said calmly. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The silence was louder than shouting. She tried to laugh. He's a kid. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I nodded slowly. Sure. She took a step closer. You think I'd bring someone around him? I don't think, I said. I just listen. The room was still. She set the milk down too hard. It spilled across the counter. You're twisting this, she snapped. Jake's a friend. He's been helping with the promotion. That's good, I said, my voice flat. You'll need it. Her brows knitted. What's that supposed to mean? I looked at her the way someone looks at a stranger they used to love. It means I've stopped explaining myself. She stared, waiting for a fight, but I gave her none. That unnerved her more than shouting ever could. You're not making sense, she said, shaking her head. Neither did you, I said softly, and walked past her. I in the bedroom. Her suitcase was half open on the floor, not packed for a trip, just messy, like someone who never fully decides to leave but never really stays. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the framed photo of our wedding. We looked happy, naive. I remembered how she squeezed my hand when we said our vows, how she whispered, "Promise me," even when it's hard. It was hard now, and I still kept the promise to protect what was real, even if that meant protecting our son from her. That night, she acted like nothing happened. Cooked dinner, laughed too loud, texted someone in the kitchen while pretending it was work. I didn't ask. I watched her from across the table, and for the first time, she looked small, cornered by her own lies. When Ethan asked for dessert, she said, "Let's have ice cream like old times." I smiled faintly. Sure, old times. She didn't catch the edge in my tone. Later, when she fell asleep on the couch, her phone buzzed twice. I didn't pick it up, didn't need to. The name on the lock screen glowed bright enough to say everything. Jake. I turned off the lamp, stood in the dark, and felt something shift. The anger was gone. What replaced it was quieter, colder, sharper. The kind of calm that only comes when you stop trying to be understood. Tomorrow, I'd start writing a different story. Not with words, but with actions. And when she realized it, it would already be too late. The next morning began with rain tapping against the window, slow and steady. The kind of sound that makes you think about everything you've been avoiding. She was still asleep on the couch, her phone under the pillow like a secret she couldn't let go of. I stood there for a while, watching her breathe. She looked peaceful, almost innocent, and for a split second, I remembered the woman I married. The one who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during movie nights, not holding someone else's name behind her screen. But the moment passed. I picked up the phone, turned it over, saw the notifications. Jake's name again, heart emojis, a string of messages from last night. You home? He asleep. Miss you already. I put it back exactly as I found it. No screenshots, no confrontation, just quiet confirmation. When she woke up, she stretched and yawned like a teenager after summer camp. "You're up early," she said, voice thick with sleep. "Couldn't rest," I replied. "Long night." She blinked, suspicious, then smiled faintly. "You're not mad about yesterday?" I shook my head. "No, you should rest. You've been busy." She didn't catch it. Maybe she did and pretended not to. Either way, she went upstairs humming. That same careless melody she used to hum when she was getting ready for me. Now it just felt like noise. After she left for work, I sat down and opened my laptop. Not to track her, not to spy, to prepare. I went through our shared accounts, the house documents, the trust fund we set up for Ethan. She had no idea how much she'd already disconnected herself from it all. Her name wasn't even on the second mortgage, her idea at the time to keep it simple. Now, that simplicity worked in my favor that I spent the next few days moving like a ghost in my own life. Quietly, methodically. Every morning, she left at 8:30, dressed sharp, perfume thick, the same excuse, meetings, late calls, presentations. Every night, she returned around 10, sometimes later, smelling like expensive wine and someone else's cologne. She never noticed the way Ethan had stopped asking about her. That hurt more than anything. One evening, while I was helping Ethan with his homework, he looked up and said, "Mom's never here for dinner anymore." I tried to smile. "She's busy, buddy." He stared at the math problem, then whispered, "She lies a lot." I didn't know what to say. He looked at me like he wanted me to fix it like dads are supposed to, but some things you can't fix without breaking something else first. That night, after he went to bed, I sat on the porch and called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Claire, my wife's boss's wife. She picked up on the third ring. "Mark," she said cautiously. "It's been a while." I exhaled. "Yeah, sorry to call out of the blue. Just a question. Do you know a guy named Jake from your husband's office?" She paused. "Of course. The one always hanging around with—" She stopped herself. "With your wife." I said nothing. That was answer enough. After a moment, she added quietly, "I've seen them at the rooftop bar after work." I didn't want to assume. "You didn't have to," I said. "Thanks." When I hung up, I sat there until the cold crept into my bones. The house behind me was dark except for the soft nightlight in Ethan's room. I could hear him shifting in his sleep, the faint murmur of dreams. And in that stillness, something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to let her show herself. People like her always do. The next day, I left the house early and stopped by her office building. The receptionist remembered me. "Here to see Mrs. Collins?" she asked brightly. I nodded. "She's in a meeting," the woman said, glancing at the schedule. "With Jake." My pulse didn't even move. "Could you tell her I dropped off her charger?" I handed her a small bag. Inside was a blank flash drive. Nothing on it, just a message waiting to happen. That evening, when she came home, she was all smiles. "You stopped by my office?" she asked, hanging her coat. "Yeah," I said. "Forgot to mention." She kissed my cheek, quick, mechanical. "You're sweet," she murmured, and went upstairs to shower. 10 minutes later, I heard the sound of her phone buzzing on the counter again. Jake's name lit up, followed by, "He bought it." "You're good." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling nothing, just clarity, the kind you get before a storm. I turned off the phone and left it exactly where it was. When she came back down, hair damp, smile easy, she looked at me and said, "Want to go out Friday? Just us?" I smiled back. "Sure. Dinner sounds perfect." That Friday, I booked a table at the same restaurant where Ethan had told me the truth. She dressed beautifully, in the same blue dress she wore on our anniversary. "You remembered," she said when she saw the reservation confirmation on my phone. I nodded. Hard to forget a place like that. We drove in silence. She scrolled through her messages, hiding the screen like a teenager sneaking texts. The rain from earlier in the week had stopped, leaving the streets shiny and reflective. When we arrived, She reached for my hand across the table, trying to recreate something that wasn't there anymore. "We needed this," she said softly, "to start fresh." I looked at her and thought about the messages, the lies, the way she used our son as cover for her late nights. I smiled just enough for her to think she'd won. "You're right," I said. "A fresh start." The waiter came to take our order. I asked for 2 glasses of wine, her favorite. She looked pleased. "What's the occasion?" I looked. The restaurant glowed with warm light, the kind that tries to make everything look softer than it really is. She kept her smile ready, her voice sweet, her hands folded neatly like a woman who still believed she could control the story. "It feels good to be out together again," she said, glancing at the wine glass as if it could erase weeks of lies. "I've missed this." I nodded once. "So have I." The waiter poured the wine and stepped back. I watched her fingers trace the rim of the glass, perfectly manicured, the same hands that had once built our life and now were busy dismantling it behind my back. She leaned in. "You've been distant lately. I was worried I pushed you too far." I met her eyes and held them, calm and steady. "You did," I said quietly, and before she could speak again, I added, "But I'm starting to understand why." That made her blink, uncertain. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice lighter than it should have been. "Nothing you need to explain," I said. "Let's just enjoy dinner." She smiled, relieved, thinking she'd managed to smooth it over again. The plates arrived. Candlelight reflected in the silverware. The air smelled like rosemary and wine. Around us, couples laughed, the soft hum of conversation filling the room. I could feel her relax. She thought this was reconciliation. That's what made it work. I let her talk, about work, about promotions, about how Jake's been helping me polish the presentation for next week. She said his name like it meant nothing, like she hadn't already burned the meaning out of it. "He's really been supportive," she added. "A good colleague." I smiled faintly. "He's definitely involved." For a moment, she froze, sensing the edge under the calm. "Mark," she said, tilting her head. "Why do I feel like there's something you're not saying?" I set my fork down. "Because there is." She laughed nervously. "Okay, then say it." I looked around the restaurant, then back at her. "You picked this place for our anniversary. You didn't show up. Our son did." Her face paled a little, lips parting. "Ethan?" "Yeah," I said, my tone even. "He told me you were busy with Jake." Again. She went still, eyes darting around, realizing the name had been spoken too loud. "Mark, not here," she whispered. "Please don't make a scene." I leaned back, my voice calm enough to make the air colder. "A scene? No, not my style." She reached for her wine, but her hand shook. "He misunderstood. Kids mix things up. You can't just—" "He didn't," I interrupted softly. "He's smarter than you think." Her jaw tightened. "You're trying to humiliate me." "No," I said. "You did that all by yourself." She stared at me, searching for anger, but found only silence. That silence was worse than shouting. She pushed her plate away. "You planned this, didn't you? This whole dinner, this setup." I looked at her, calm and unblinking. "I just wanted closure." Her phone buzzed on the table. I didn't need to look. She did. Her eyes flicked to the screen, and for a moment her expression betrayed her. Panic, guilt, the instinct to hide. "It's just work," she said too quickly. "Then answer it," I said. She hesitated, then pressed decline. "It can wait." "So can I," I said. A waiter approached, hesitating near the table. "Everything okay here?" "Perfect," I said, not looking away from her. She forced a smile. "We're fine." The waiter nodded and left, though I could tell he knew better. For a long moment, we just sat there, the candle flickering between us like a countdown. Then she spoke, her voice cracking slightly. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," I said. "That's the point." I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and placed it on the table. Her reflection shimmered on the screen as I tapped play. The sound was faint at first, Voices, laughter, clinking glasses, and then clear, her voice unmistakable, saying, "He thinks I'm at a meeting. Poor guy still believes me." Jake's laugh followed, low and smug. Then here's to him staying clueless. The recording faded. Her face drained of color. She reached out, whispering, "Where did you get that?" "I didn't," I said. "Ethan did. You left your tablet unlocked. Guess who knows how to use the voice recorder?" She covered her mouth, eyes wide. "You let him—" "No." I cut her off. "He just found what was already there." For the first time in months, she had no words. The mask she wore every day slipped completely, leaving just a trembling, tired woman who finally realized the cost of her own lies. "I can explain," she murmured. "I'm sure you can," I said quietly. "But I won't be here to listen." She reached across the table, desperate now. "Don't do this. Not in public. Please." I stood up slowly, took my jacket, and placed the key to our house on the table. "You wanted freedom," I said. "Now you've got it." People had started noticing. A few turned their heads as I walked past. I didn't look back. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. The street was wet again, the rain just beginning to fall. I stood under the awning, listening to the faint hum of traffic and her muffled voice calling my name from inside. I didn't go back. I didn't need to. She'd just seen what silence looks like when it finally speaks for itself. When I got home, Ethan was asleep again, curled up with his stuffed bear. I sat beside him, brushed his hair back, and whispered, "We're okay, buddy." He stirred a little, sighed, and went back to dreaming. Upstairs, the closet was half empty. I took what mattered, his drawings, a few photos, my books, and packed them neatly. There was no rush, no chaos, just a strange calm, the kind that comes when you finally stop holding on. The next morning, she would wake to a house missing everything except her reflection, and the truth waiting at the door. Dawn came quietly, washing the house in a pale gray light, the kind that doesn't warm, only reveals. My car was already packed by then, a few boxes stacked in the trunk, a duffel bag on the passenger seat. Ethan's backpack rested on top, his favorite dinosaur keychain swinging slightly each time the wind brushed past. Inside, the house looked hollow. Not empty, just stripped of meaning. The coffee mug she always used sat in the sink, lipstick still smudged on the rim. I left it there like evidence for someone else to interpret later. I wasn't angry anymore. That part of me had burned out days ago. What was left was quieter, colder, sharper. It wasn't revenge I wanted. It was peace. At 7:15, her car pulled into the driveway. I didn't hide. She walked in through the front door, calling out, "Mark." Her voice was hesitant, as if she already knew what she'd find. I was standing in the living room, zipping Ethan's jacket. "We're heading out," I said. "Early breakfast before school." She blinked, eyes darting to the half-packed shelves, the missing photo frames, the empty space where my desk used to be. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice rising. "You're leaving." I nodded. "Yeah, we are." She took a step closer, panic creeping into her tone. "You can't just take him and go." "I'm not taking him," I said calmly. "I'm keeping him safe." Her expression twisted. "You're overreacting." "Maybe," I said, "but that's what parents do when they care." She grabbed my arm, desperate now. "Mark, please, let's talk." I looked at her hand on me, her wedding ring still on, but slightly loose, like it didn't belong anymore. "We've done enough talking," I said softly. "You just never listened." Her voice cracked. "You can't punish me like this. You don't get to decide everything. You decided for both of us the moment you brought someone else into our home," I said. "You just didn't think I'd notice." Tears welled up, the kind she used to weaponize whenever she felt cornered. But now they didn't move me. "I made mistakes," she whispered. "We can fix this." "We could have," I said. "Before Jake, before the lies, before our son had to be the one to tell me the truth." She froze at his name, glancing toward him. He was sitting quietly by the stairs, clutching his toy car, watching everything unfold. Ethan, she said, forcing a smile. Mommy and Daddy are just talking, he finished for her. I know. Then he looked at me and asked softly, can we go now? That one sentence broke something in her. Her knees seemed to weaken. Please don't do this in front of him, she begged. Then maybe you shouldn't have started in front of him, I said. I picked up his backpack, helped him put it on, and turned toward the door. She followed us outside, barefoot, shivering on the porch. Mark, where will you go? Somewhere honest, I said. Somewhere quiet. She wiped her face. I love you, she said suddenly, desperate, as if saying it now could erase everything. I paused, looked back at her one last time. No, I said. You love how I made you look. That's different. Ethan slipped his small hand into mine as we walked to the car. She called after him, her voice breaking. Ethan, honey, I'll see you tonight. Okay? He didn't answer. He just climbed into the back seat, turned his face toward the window, and stared at the house like it was something fading in the distance even before we pulled away. The drive was quiet, the kind of silence that feels earned. The radio stayed off. The roads were slick from last night's rain, and the world outside looked washed clean. At a red light, Ethan finally spoke. Are we coming back? He asked. I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Not for a while, I said. That okay? He thought for a moment. Yeah, I like breakfast with you. We stopped at a small diner off the highway, the kind with old jukeboxes and waitresses who call everyone sweetheart. The same place I used to go to clear my head years ago. The waitress poured us coffee and hot chocolate. Just you two this morning? She asked. Yeah, I said. Just us. She smiled knowingly, like she'd seen this scene before. Maybe she had. Ethan drew on his napkin again, a stick-figure family. Me, him, and a son in the corner. No mom this time. I didn't say anything. Some things are better left in drawings. When breakfast was done, I checked my phone. There were 12 missed calls, 6 messages, 1 voicemail that started with a sob and ended with silence. I deleted them all without listening. Then I texted her one line. The keys under the mat. The lawyer will call Monday. She replied instantly, please, don't end it like this. I turned the phone face down. Some endings don't need words. We drove to the coast that weekend. I'd promised Ethan a trip months ago, and this time, I kept it. We walked along the pier, wind whipping through our jackets, seagulls diving over the water. He ran ahead, laughing, free in a way I hadn't seen in months. I stood there watching him, realizing that maybe freedom doesn't come from revenge. It comes from release. Later, when he was asleep in the hotel room, I stepped out onto the balcony. The sky was dark, the sea restless. I took out my wedding ring, turned it between my fingers, and placed it on the railing. For a moment, I thought about everything it once meant. Then I let it fall. It hit the wood below, rolled once, and disappeared into the waves. Back inside, Ethan stirred and mumbled, Dad. I sat beside him. Yeah, buddy? You're not sad anymore, he whispered. I smiled faintly. No, I said. Just tired. Good, he murmured, already half asleep. I like you better happy. In the distance, the tide pulled back and crashed again. Life moving on, like it always does. For anyone listening, if the story found you at the wrong time, if you're sitting in the dark wondering when to leave, remember this: silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the only language left when love forgets how to speak. Subscribe for more stories like this, and maybe, just maybe, someone out there will hear what they need to before it's too late. The next morning, Ethan and I watched the sunrise over the water. He pointed at the horizon, smiling. Look, Dad, it's starting again. I nodded, my hand resting on his shoulder. Yeah, I said softly. It always does.